Welcome to Family Action's Voices podcast series, where we talk to families, communities, and experts from our services about the things that are important to families today. In this podcast, we visit our community mental health service, BAND, in Bolton, to discuss the impact of COVID-19 and lockdown on the nation's mental health, and tips regarding how to keep yourself healthy and happy.
Gentlemen, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Okay, I'll go. Hi, my name is Martin. I've worked for BAND a long time, and I work on a project, a Support First project, and I work across a couple of agencies, but I'm based at BAND.
Hello, my name's Charlie. I'm the befriending development worker and life skills tutor at BAND.
Well, fantastic. It's good now I'm working with experts. Obviously, anyone listening will gather that, like all meetings, this is taking place in the ether between our homes. So obviously you have to forgive us any audio clicks and pops. Unfortunately, at the moment, they're just the way things work. Okay. Could one of you perhaps outline for the people listening what our BAND service does?
We use what's called the Mental Health Recovery Star, which looks at about 10 different areas of people's lives. So managing mental health, self-esteem, hope and trust, life skills, work, that kind of thing. And for each of those areas, we support people in moving towards being self-reliant. So we look at the whole person and in a very human way, support them to get to live their life as they want to live it, alongside their mental health.
And we do quite a lot, really. We're quite well served in Bolton. BAND does a lot of services. We do one-to-one groups. We have an organisation we call Fix It, which rejuvenates old PCs and IT equipment, and they sell that for a profit. But it's a kind of people in sheds kind of environment, and people like it. They're quite parochial about it, I think.
Fantastic.
But it's a great service. And they've been lauded all over the place in the press. I think they've had little exposés on what they do, and they're quite well known in Bolton now, I think. We have a food share program, so people on low incomes that are difficult, I find it difficult accessing, a weekly shop, or for whatever reason, we're pretty flexible on that. We have a food share program that delivers food to the houses, or they can come in and pick it up. We have a greenhouse project, we have a football project, we have an information and support work stream. We have ongoing partnerships with local community organisations, including mental health, including the hospital. What else do we do? We have a volunteer hospital scheme where our volunteers work on the wards. So when people are admitted to the psychiatric units or mental health wards, our volunteers go on there and kind of buddy up with them, get them ready for discharge, meet them on discharge, introduce them to BAND services. And that's fantastic.
So obviously, like all media, like all conversations at the moment, there's the spectre of COVID-19 and what we've all been through for a year sort of looming over us at the moment. And I'm interested to know, what's COVID-19 meant for you and your work?
What's COVID-19 meant for me and my work? It's been actually very difficult, I suppose, in terms of being able to roll out the actual service, because we're a one-to-one service. And so, someone comes to me, if I find that the befriending service is suitable for them, I would then match them with a volunteer, and they would go and work on the goals that we've outlined in the assessment and the planning. And obviously that means face-to-face contact and going out into the world and doing stuff, which obviously during the lockdown, that's just not possible to do. I have managed to do some assessments. They were done over Zoom, but they were we did those when it was looking like the lockdown was not coming. I suppose that's a bit naive, really, but yeah, it looked like things were going to be opening up again.
If it was naive, it was a naivety that we all engaged in,
yeah,
Charlie. So,
yeah,
I don't think you need to feel too guilty about that.
No, I don't. No. There were some one-to-one relationships that existed just as the lockdown started. The first lockdown, nearly a year ago, gosh. But from about May or June, we actually managed to resume those one-to-ones over Zoom. And it's been quite good, yeah. That's a sort of glimmer of hope amongst the, not the doom and gloom, but we basically had to stop our service.
Yeah.
And we didn't stop everything. Obviously, we've started a number of groups over Zoom. So I think every day of the week we actually have a Zoom group.
Yes, that's really quite nice.
Which is pretty good, yeah. And in March last year, we basically put all our beneficiaries into a pool. Not literally, of course.
That would be interesting.
that would have been very interesting. Yeah.
Though would almost certainly have broken guidelines at the time, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, I think we did it just before the guidelines came in. But yeah, we put all our beneficiaries in the pool and we phoned them all up and asked them if they would like to receive weekly welfare calls.
Right.
So a lot of our time, at least until just before Christmas, was taken up doing welfare calls. Obviously, a lot of work can come out of those welfare calls, like help with benefits, trouble with landlords, that kind of thing. And then, so yeah, for the first 6 months or so, the referrals really died down. Everything died down except for the welfare calls. And then from December onwards, the referrals have started up again.
Okay.
And it's looking like things are heating up quite a lot. And I think that's possibly the effects of the lockdown. A lot of them are coming through saying, you know, absolutely fine, going to work, blah, blah, blah. But then since being furloughed, mental health problems have started arising, you know. Okay. And I think that's what we're going to see going forward, is quite a lot more referrals coming in.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people mention the kind of inevitable sort of mental health fallout of a year of everybody dealing with this. And I think we have just seen the tip of the iceberg, and it's going to be, it's potentially quite worrying. I think that's why it's important that we start having conversations like the ones we're having today about how we start looking after each other.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot we can do for each other.
And ourselves as well.
And ourselves, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously we've been talking about sort of people you work with. Do you think there's been an impact on the mental health of the nation as a whole as a result of COVID-19? Anecdotally, or just from what you've seen or heard?
I think there's been an impact on the nation driven by COVID, but then milked by the media and, you know, whatever science is out there, you know, this kind of science politic debacle about who we should believe. I think it's been so muddled for people that, you know, if you're not a reader and, you know, you don't sort of look at different variations in the news, it must be absolutely terrifying. And in fact, it is for some people. They cannot get their heads around what's going to happen next. So you've got to be very careful of what you listen to sometimes. And especially if you're skeptical and your illness is driving you down the kind of paranoid avenue, it can make things really difficult for people.
Yeah, I think the nation's mental health has suffered immensely. I think I'm really sorry for kids at the moment, school-age kids at school all day, have 3 breaks a day, where they're out running around the playground, doing all their social interactions, you know, being kids with each other, learning how to be humans, and burning off all that energy, and it's suddenly all stopped.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've got my biggest sympathy amongst all this, I think.
It's interesting how the situation sort of cuts across so many aspects of our lives that might intersect with mental health. So I'm interested by what you're saying about kind of the mental impact of it upon us. It's also about that physical aspect of having too much energy, our sleep patterns being messed with. And actually, a lot of us maybe don't even realise how much we were relying upon the routine of work and getting out the office and seeing our work colleagues, and actually how important that was to all of us now until it was taken away. It's interesting how I think that these days we don't often think about ourselves as a cell within a society, but actually I think it becomes clear once that's taken away how necessary it is for all of our mental health.
Sometimes when societies have to change the work and life patterns, historically you get quite a run up to it, and it take, you know, the curve on the graph's quite shallow, so we get as humans, we get some time to sort of develop into these things. But this is like a shock tactic. People are suddenly, like Charlie said, kids are going to school, next day snip, the whole thing's axed, and it's like your whole psyche now. It's an attack on your whole, everything you do. The shop's shut, you can't see your mum. Everything's just gone snip, and nobody's been given. And unfortunately, there's no advice at the national level. I know people can kind of cope with that because it's never been done before, I suppose. I think each generation has its Vietnam and World War II, doesn't it? It looks like this one's ours. And the magnitude of it, because it's global, it's really difficult for anybody to come up with an idea to ameliorate the hardships, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what people are struggling with.
Yeah, and I think actually it's interesting because my instinct when you said about World War II or Vietnam was for me to go, oh, it's not that bad. But actually, in some ways, I think you're right. In terms of its effect upon the world, it's, probably one of the biggest things that's ever happened. Not many disasters or historical events have actually had that global impact that this has had, So actually, you're probably bang on there. Obviously, I don't just want to talk about the impact of COVID and how difficult it's been. I'd really like to sort of give our listeners something to take away with them. And I know that you guys sort of deal with mental health every day. So I'd really like to know, is there anything that you would recommend to the people listening? Any small steps they can take to sort of improve their mental health and keep ticking over during this difficult time?
Yeah, I have a few things, I suppose. They might sound a bit odd, but that's the nature of the beast, I suppose. I found what people find particularly useful is to have a planning session maybe once a week and just deliberately plan activities into your day that make a small difference to you. You could actually write a list of activities and maybe score them in how much fun they give you, how much a sense of achievement they give you, and how much they help you connect with other people. So various activities do different things for you, don't they? We're talking about really simple things like doing the washing up. That could be one of your activities, because there is, believe it or not, a little bit of your brain that thrives off ticking things off lists.
I was about to say, Charlie, I feel like I'd score that one pretty low, but I do, but I do get what you mean. There's that sense of achievement. Even with things that might not be the most fun activity in the world, the very sense of getting them resolved is an achievement for that day that you can sort of tick off.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Absolutely, yes. It became highlighted for me by chatting with one of my beneficiaries. And he sets an hour aside every Wednesday morning and he writes down a list of what he's going to do each day. And it is stuff like do the washing up. Phone me mum. Really simple stuff, because a lot of the point is doing those things. So calling your mum is it's a good thing to do. Doing the washing up is a good thing to do. But there's a piece of your brain that loves ticking things off lists. And every time you tick something off that list, it will release some happy chemicals into your system, serotonin. You can probably Google brain hacks or something,
right,
and you will get things like this. Another one is, I know it sounds really trite, particularly at the times that we're living in, but I suppose you could generalize it as counting your blessings. We spend an awful lot of time, and it's very easy to do, thinking about the stuff that we haven't got anymore and that we can't do, and we kind of, in our day-to-day life, we kind of chat to ourselves, don't we? We have this conversation inside our heads. And I do it myself. I find myself thinking about the things that I can't do anymore, what I'm worried about. And I think you have to, the first step is to recognize that you're doing it and stop yourself in your tracks and deliberately start thinking about stuff that you have got, like the roof over your head, hot and cold running water, aspirin, painkillers, all those tiny little things. And they found that it's not actually having a full list of stuff to be grateful for that releases the happy hormones into your system. What actually does the job of that is sitting down and trying to think of the things that you should be grateful for. It sounds really strange, but just the act of deliberately trying to work out the good stuff that you have is enough to trigger the serotonin release.
It makes sense to me actually, because what you're essentially doing is you're stepping outside the moment, aren't you? I think that what a lot of us don't do because of the nature of how we live now is that we're always part of what's going on. We're never in a situation where we're going, oh, I'll just take some time down the pub, go to cinema, go to theatre, and take that time to step out of our lives. I mean, I always think about that phrase about how, I can't attribute it, but how going to cinema is like dreaming with your eyes open. And it's that idea of your brain turning off for a while and you not being consciously in your situation. Naturally, that act of of taking time out and sort of thinking about it in an abstract sense is essentially doing this same thing to a degree, isn't it?
Yeah. Taking some time out for that almost constant conversation that you have with yourself. The Buddhists call it the monkey brain, because it's constantly going chatter, chatter, chatter. And there's I'm going to mention the M word, meditation. Because a lot of people, you say meditation, oh, Sonny, it's all that hippy drippy stuff that, the yogurt weaving kind of thing. But it's all meditation is taking time out for that constant chatter that you've got on in your head. That's all it is. And there's, what's built up around it is various methods and techniques that help you do that. But basically, you're just turning off the thought, and it's a really important thing to do, because if you're constantly chattering away in your head, you notice this in people that experience severe anxiety. The conversation in their head is so loud that they can't even hear people talking to them. I do it myself when I've got something that I'm really worried about, or something quite intense in my life, because it happens, I find I'm so busy thinking in my head that when Di goes, Charlie, I don't notice, and I think distraction is the best way to, because you can't just not think about it.
Or at least I imagine you have to be very, very good at meditation to be able to just go, I'm not going to think about this now. I think that's almost a skill you learn, isn't it, over time?
Yeah, I think absolutely, it's a skill that you learn, and the more you do it, the easier it becomes, but for those that don't do meditation or don't want to do meditation, those going to do a craft or learning something new, or in the old days going to the cinema, going to play football, or watching football, there's an opportunity in doing those things that allows you to turn off that internal chatter.
That's fantastic. And I've got friends who would argue that playing an instrument would do the same thing, or painting. Those sort of activities that exist in more sort of an abstract sense, I guess, could help slightly, couldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, when I work at home, I have my guitar next to my desk, and I will take 2 minutes out.
Martin, I know you're chomping at the bit to have a word. Is there anything you would sort of advise based on your working experience?
Sorry if I appear to be chomping at the bit.
No, not at all. To be fair, I'm glad you're engaged. We're nearly 12 months into lockdown. I'm just pleased you're not asleep.
Like another year. I kind of echo what Charlie said. I think some of those things that we do every day that we take for granted, like not cleaning up and not washing that pile of stuff and not making that phone call, I think it's worth just putting the extra effort in to do that. But it's really hard if you don't have the impetus to do that in a normal day, when everything's hunky-dory. It's even more difficult when there's nobody there kicking you up your jacksie. Ring your mum up, So it's quite difficult. But I think for me, and the best conversations I have with people is when you get people to reconnect with a hobby that they might have had. If there's any time to start that project that you'd always put off, now's the time to do it. And it could be absolutely anything from revamping your car in the back street right up to redecorating your house. And I know they're quite big things, but like life, you just break them down into smaller chunks and chip away at them until something's done. And that satisfaction neuron in your brain that Charlie was talking about with the list thing You know, I think we take for granted normally, don't we? You know, you do something good at work, somebody says, "Oh, nice one, Martin," but we're not getting that at the moment. People, especially our clients, they're not getting any positive affirmations from anywhere. So you have to give them to yourself sometimes, and especially if you live on your own and you're isolated. So you need to be able to do something you can go to bed and think, "Oh, that's all right. You know, I did that." Because one of the issues that seems to crop up is people having the same conversations with themselves all the time. So that kind of Groundhog Day mentality, if you live on your own, you don't want to put the TV on for a distraction. You already suffer with some sort of paranoia. It must be extremely difficult. And to try and find something that you enjoyed doing when you were younger, if it's bird watching, waiting for that magpie to turn up, whatever it is, those tiny little things that make you go,
Yeah.
You know, things that make you go, ooh, that kind of thing. But we're not having enough of them in our lives, do we? And
No.
you've got to make your own, I think.
Yeah.
And back to thinking, I think thinking's good. It's easy to sit there in front of the TV and just veg. But the way I keep relatively sane is by indulging myself in the hobbies, some of which are fairly cerebral to myself. But it keeps me sane, and I feel like I've spent my time well rather than sitting there looking at the goggle box. And sometimes switching all that off and indulging yourself, like Charlie says, pick your guitar up. I play guitar a bit, and it's nice just to have an hour where all you're concerned with is your own indulgence, because we normally get frowned upon by indulging ourselves. Well, hang on a minute, the rich people indulging themselves all the time. It doesn't seem to do them any harm, does it? So, you know, time to turn the tables, I think. Yeah. So thinking about positive things and trying to do one achievement a day is a great thing.
No, I think one thing which sort of you're highlighting, I think is really interesting, is the idea of sort of switching off. I think that the danger with a global situation that sort of tells you, oh, here's this very fast moving situation that there will be new news about every day and there will be new information about, is that you do end up with your phone turned on all the time, the news all the time, trying to find some kind of updates. But actually, I'm not sure that's a healthy way for human beings to exist in a constant state of awareness and anxiety. You know, I think if you wanted to look back to sort of our origins as a species, you know, that would be like being on watch for, what is it, like a predator or whatever the entire time. And that doesn't seem a healthy way for us to live, you know. So I think you're right. I think sometimes giving yourself permission to turn off and not pay attention for 10 minutes is probably a very healthy suggestion.
Yeah. And not that changes, does it? You know, you listen to the news today, listen to it on Monday next week, it's going to be marginally different and probably worse. So, you know, why put it on?
Yeah, actually, I'm always surprised by how, when you look at the totality of what's been discussed, how little does change day to day. It feels simultaneously like things are very fast moving and actually nothing changes at all. I think that's probably in the interests of the people running the news because they want you to tune in, but that doesn't necessarily have to be in our interest.
Yeah. You know? I think if you're done with the COVID stuff on the news, they then follow that up with the disasters in the Middle East, the disaster China's falling to bits, America's exploded. You know, it's not surprising people are worried about looking out of the front window because it's described like a novel. And people are wrapped up with this stuff all the time. So you've got to exit that occasionally and just go, oh my God, it's real.
Obviously, sorry, Charlie, do you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I was just agreeing with Martin really about, you know, the way that the novelization of reality, you know, but I just want to sort of add, one of the best, simplest things you can do for your own mental well-being is just be kind to yourself. You know, because we're not kind to ourselves. I think I look at all my colleagues here. I look at all my beneficiaries, clients, whatever you want to call them. Look at family and friends. And I think that the most common thing amongst us all in terms of mental health and mental well-being is that we're not very good at being kind to ourselves. We're very good at being kind to our friends, but not very good at being kind to ourselves. And I think we need to learn to be kind to ourselves in the same way that we're kind to our friends. You know.
So I think that's a good thing to take away. Sort of, if you had one tip that we take away above all else, it's sort of, because all those sort of things we've talked about, whether it's, you know, finding time to switch off and not worry so much, whether it's taking time to indulge your passions, your hobbies, whether it's about, taking listens. It's all about working on yourself a bit and ensuring that you're happy and ensuring that you pay yourself the attention that you would pay other people. So I think that's a nice message to have. I'm interested, you speak about being kind to others. One thing I was interested in is there anything that you think people could do for their communities or their family members or anything during this period that would be particularly helpful?
It's difficult at the moment, people joining in neighbourly community activities, I think, just with the COVID restrictions. But there are things people can do. We run a lot of Zoom meetings. I hate to kind of plug the IT thing, but it seems to have popped up from nowhere, doesn't it? In terms of connecting with your family and your immediates, it's a pretty good tool. I do it with my kids because I don't see my kids. We all meet up on Sundays. As a family thing. We have a couple of hours, just go nuts in front of each other, which is what we normally do. It's a nice release. It's an endorphin thing, isn't it?
I just love the idea of you just turning it on, streaming randomly for no particular reason, and then turning it off after.
I have no idea. I'm sure this is. Charlie knows. He knows my kids. But it's nice. It's a nice thing to do. But in terms of connecting with other organisations, there are plenty of charitable things going on if people really want to get stuck in. If you go online and look at volunteering opportunities, at Band, we have a massive volunteering thing at Band. It's in stasis at the moment because of the COVID thing, in terms of working one-to-one. But you can still register. You can register interest with different community organisations and receive updates on what they're doing, what you can do when there's a hole in the COVID and you can actually go out and do something. So there's plenty of things that people can tap into.
Also,
it's have the wherewithal to be able to do it.
Also look for mutual aid groups in your local area as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of kind of almost under the radar stuff going on that most people might not be aware of. So if you Googled find mutual aid in my area, you will probably come across something.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously when you think about mutual aid, it can seem like you might not have the bandwidth for it yourself or the ability to do it, but actually in some respects it plays into that thing of giving yourself more time, because actually it shifts the focus from you and what's going on in your life and that closed story, and actually expands it out into the wider world, doesn't it? And allows you to help and interact with other people. And again, I think that's something that can be good for us at the moment, to sort of take time out of our own story to sort of work with others,
It is the kind of thing you see on the news, isn't it? Local groups did this, they supported this, they've donated food to that. So there are things. I bet, within a few streets of where most people live, there'll be some kind of community enterprise going on. But the trick is finding it, I suppose, and if people are isolated. But that's where organisations like us come in, and other support groups who are working. If somebody said to me, I really would like to join a knitting group and have a chat with some women, I'd be able to find one.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, there's plenty of community pages on Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay.
And most, not everyone, obviously, but most people are on Facebook. And so there's an app called Neighborhood or something.
Okay.
I remember coming across it a while ago. I think you can register online with it, and that basically allows you to connect with your neighbours that you might not. I mean, I know the other way to is just walk down the street and knock on doors and go hello. In fact, one of my neighbours, bless him, he actually wrote a letter telling everyone who he was, what his phone number was, and if you need any help, please don't hesitate to phone me, and I will do what I can to help. And he went down the whole street posting that letter through the door.
There's something tremendously heartwarming about that. I think that regardless of who you are, it won't fail to bring a smile to your face to hear something like that. I think that
absolutely.
I think all of us worry about being rejected. So in many respects, it's quite a brave thing to do, to sort of put yourself out there and say, "Oh, I'm here." But actually, I think that's wonderful, and probably came as very what's the word? It was probably very reassuring for a lot of people who lived on the street to receive that.
I think it was, yeah.
Okay, so moving on from sort of advice and stuff, are there any resources that have come up over the past couple of months that you would recommend that people might be able to access that might help them and sort of support their mental health and well-being?
Well, actually, Tim, just before we jump onto that,
Yeah.
I did think of another thing that's really important.
Okay, go on.
In terms of well-being, and that is to admit that you're not okay. Do you know when you ask someone, "Hello, how are you doing?" Your immediate automatic response is to go, "Yeah, okay." And it's very rare for people to say, "Actually, no, I'm not okay." And I think that until you say that, your friends and family, they might, in your behavior and the way that you're acting, might spot that there's something not right. But until you come out and say, "Yeah, I'm okay, but I'm struggling with something," or "I'm not that okay," people really don't have the hook to latch onto to actually help you out. And sometimes just being able to say, "I'm not okay," is the release that you need. I think of your own experience, and it depends on your friends, it depends on your family and your relationships with people. But I think it's really important to be able to say that I'm not okay, and it's okay to not be okay.
Okay, so we were moving back to resources that we would recommend for people during this time. And I mean, there's a weird thing nowadays that when you say resources, people automatically assume you mean online. But I mean, these can really be any resources that you think might be useful for people at this point to access. So, anybody who wants to shoot? Anybody got any ideas?
Oh, I've got a cheesy one.
Okay, go on.
Yourself.
That's very deep. That's very deep, Charlie.
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah. Well, one of the things we do in recovery-focused work is help and support people to recognise their own strengths, to see themselves as the number one resource that they can go to. It's not as deep as it sounds, I don't think. We just don't. Sometimes you need another person outside of you to point out how good you are at something, how strong you are. So I have people come to me telling me that they're absolutely weak. They can't do anything. And sometimes the first thing I'll say to them is, "Well, I've read in your referral to me that you experience extreme, severe anxiety. You told me yourself that you don't like meeting people, and yet here you are, sat in front of me. And you're not shouting at me, you're not quivering in fear, you're talking, here you are, look." And they kind of look surprised and in shock that, "Oh God, yeah, actually, now you mention it."
Okay,
So I think you are possibly far more resourceful than you think.
And I think that I am sure there is a subset of people listening to this who go, "He's not really talking about me," but I think it's worth pointing out that Charlie is definitely talking about you.
I am absolutely talking about you. Yes.
Yeah,
because I was there once, and I still have my moments. Don't get me wrong. I'm not some infallible, all-knowing mental well-being guru. I am human. I have days where I just want to throw everything out the window. But I think it's how good you are at sorting out your mental well-being helps you just bounce back quicker. You might not be able to stop the flares of grumpiness, the moments of "I can't do this." You just get over it quicker. You bounce back quicker. You come up with the solutions quicker.
Okay, fantastic. Martin, do you have anything you would like to sort of suggest as a resource to people?
As a resource, like community, well, there's community resources. If you can make the effort, you can get out and you can, if you need support, for instance, with equipment, funds, food, there are plenty of agencies you can go through, local council, etc., to get support with getting food deliveries. Some organisations will deliver activity packs. We do that at Band.
Okay,
we might send a pack out and it'll have things like, so if somebody has kids, we can develop the pack so it's got kid-friendly activities in, the whole panoply of stuff, from colouring in things to word searches. which takes a bit of pressure off. Having new stuff come through your letterbox is quite nice. If people can get out and, like I say, contact food hubs if they're short of food. In terms of mental health resources, I don't know what to sort of recommend really, because a lot of agencies are kind of stymied in the same way that we are. So it's difficult for people to go out and get assistance. Like if they're having problems with benefits or any civic things, you know, in the old days you could go to Citizens Advice and queue up.
Yeah.
You could go to the money unit, you know, for debt counselling in the council offices, and it's harder to get access to those sort of things.
No, but I guess Citizens Advice is still online, and many people might not be, you know, aware they can access that. You know,
I have some other resources. These are online resources. I kind of alluded to one of them earlier. Now, brace yourself, because this name instantly makes people go, "Oh, really?"
Okay, go on then. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, brace yourself. Dr. Happy.
I mean,
yeah.
I didn't think you were going to put it out, but you're right, Trey. There was a low part of me there that I thought, oh dear, Dr. Happy.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit much
Dr.
for me.
Happy.
But come on, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Okay.
Would it help if I told you he was Australian?
Oh, I mean, now I've bought in. No, but carry on.
Yeah. So yeah, it makes a bit more sense knowing he's Australian to call yourself Dr. Happy. He's got a website called drhappy.com.au, I think. I'll have to check that.
Okay,
I mean,
but just people can always search for it, can't they?
Sure. Yeah, of course you can. Yeah. He's a CBT therapist. Okay, and he has a website that I think on the blog section, it's presented a bit like BuzzFeed, or he links to articles that are presented a bit like BuzzFeed. You know, 10 things you can do before breakfast to make your day better, kind of thing. You know.
Charlie, just to interrupt for a second, for those people listening who don't have our level of expertise, CBT is a cognitive behavioural therapy, which is a type of therapy. You know, but sorry, I didn't mean to jump in and steal your thunder. No, I just wanted to make sure we were doing the.
You're absolutely right. I'm so used to that bit of jargon. I trot it off without thinking. But on each of those articles, they all reference neuroscience. So if you're curious, you can follow the links and go down the rabbit hole and see the actual research that backs up these little exercises, like the write a little list of things to achieve every day, like the washing up, and when you tick it, there's a little bit of your brain that releases a hormone into your system that makes you feel better. That kind of thing. And these articles, these bits of research will even tell you which part of the brain is doing the job. You know,
it's almost like a fun way to work on yourself, isn't it? In a way, like kind of a little research project about yourself would be a nice way of putting it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, and we should be. We are our own laboratory and experiment, and we should be working out how we function, because that's kind of what a lot of cognitive behavioural therapy is about. Is we don't have a manual on how to operate this brain-body system. And
let's just say then, people are quite lucky these days, because one of the things we hear a lot, people that have been on medication for a long time, for instance, or people that are new to medication, and of course some mental health medications can be really powerful chemicals. So we often get asked some of the queries when we're doing a referral or a first one-to-one interview with somebody, and we're asking, why they're here and what they want, what's the blockages in their life, etc. Sometimes people are not really aware of what the medication is doing for them, because they are complicated. You have to be scientists to understand it fully. But there are plenty of resources online where people can find them things out. But they're so deep, and the gravity well around them is so acute. Sometimes friendlier websites like the one Charlie's talking about can help demystify some of that stuff.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there is a thing. I think people do worry about. I mean, if the one thing our vaccination process in this country has taught us is people are suspicious of processes that are going on. You know, even those that are designed to help us and are, being done transparently. So I think there is something in that we like to feel like we're in control, even when control isn't a problem. I think human beings desire to know the reasons behind why things happen, and it can be powerful to take ownership of that. Okay.
It's very valuable to learn how your body and brain operates. It's like one system, and our glands and organs are almost constantly squeezing chemicals and hormones into our system, producing emotions. Primarily, emotions come off these glandular squeezings, we could call them. Going. Have some adrenaline. Hey, okay. Have some serotonin. Woohoo! And yet we don't really understand how that system works.
No.
So CBT, underlying CBT, is the science behind how our body-brain system works. And Dr. Happy's website is quite a good route into getting some understanding of that stuff. And then there's another website that I use quite a lot and refer people to quite a lot. I'm not being paid by them to refer people to them, but it's another cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) website, and I recently discovered that there's actually a 7-part course on there as well. So if you go to Get Self Help, all one word, .co.uk, and it's to be fair, it's not the best designed website because they're not charging anything. There's quite a lot of adverts, and I'd like to give the web designer a bit of a throttle, to be fair. But
this is a very long precursor for a website that you like.
But it is absolutely fantastic. There are, if you look at the top menu, look for solutions and look for problems. So the problem section is an A to Z list of problems that you might have. So anxiety, depression, low mood, poor self-esteem, that kind of thing. And if you click on the link, they'll present a bunch of resources to help you with that problem that you have. Okay, and it's absolutely brilliant.
So just last couple of points I want to discuss with you guys. So we've talked a lot about the negative result from the past year, but I'm interested to know, and this is less as a professional, maybe more as an individual, but I'm wondering whether you think there'll be sort of any positive outcomes that come out of this year in terms of what we might learn or the habits or practices we might adopt from this year, whether there's anything we might carry forward in the future that might end up being a positive for us. I really want to end on a positive if we could. It's I mean.
Well, I think in terms of band services, doing groups over Zoom. So we have a jukebox on a Monday, so people come in and we all make requests and listen to pieces of music and stuff. That's really good. There's a craft group on Fridays. We've got various bits and pieces, and I think we're going to be using that going forward because it allows people who would otherwise not be able to physically go to groups because of, say, anxiety, to actually get their foot into the group. So we actually had some funding to buy a huge TV screen and link it up to a webcam so that can go when there's an art group, for example, down in our social space. You have people that can actually go there and do the art. And then at the end of the table, you have a huge screen with people joining in over Zoom that might not otherwise be able to attend, so that they have an opportunity to see what's going on there, to join in and to meet the people that are actually in the group. And slowly build up familiarity with people, build up their confidence and trust in people, so that I think it would make it a lot easier for them further down the line to actually go to the group and successfully engage with it.
We know it does make it easier, Charlie. Yeah, without a doubt. I've had conversations with people who, because they've been in a Zoom meeting like by proxy, they might not have joined in. They might have just watched, and you can even turn the camera off. So we've had guys just turning the camera off because they don't want to be seen.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
they've seen the group, and one of the things with us, with our organisation, is we have done a lot of social sized projects. And for people that are quite vulnerable and very nervous about stuff, to walk into a room full of eyeballs, it's quite daunting. You know, nobody
for
likes
any of us. I mean, you know,
nobody likes doing that. No, but to see people on Zoom first and think, actually, I've met her before, I know her from somewhere, and you can kind of piece it together like that. So it does mean when you walk in the room, everybody goes, "Hey, Bob's here." Right? Kind of introducing people to things they might not have had a go at.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I presume that'll carry on because Zoom's share price has gone up. Let's put it that way.
So, final point. The last thing I'd like to ask you is, and it's a really simple question, and it's more about you guys. What are you personally looking forward to at the end of this? What is the thing you're going to go and do when you can, when you can finally go back to normal?
We've already got a holiday booked.
Yeah, me too.
We're going to Crete, so.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic! That sounds fantastic.
Well, we go to Crete a lot. We like Crete. It's really funky and laid back.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, sounds fantastic. And yourself, Charlie?
I'm looking forward to having a house full of friends where we can all jam along and play guitar and sing and laugh and hug. hugging, man. That's the big thing I'm missing. Yeah, just that friendship and camaraderie that you don't get when you're not in the same room as someone else. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a fantastic point to leave this in this virtual room where we're all sitting and having a drink and a hug. So thank you very much for listening. This has been the Family Action Voices podcast, and I hope you well wherever you are listening to us. Thank you.
If you or your family have experienced mental health difficulties as a result of the pandemic, we can help. In the show notes, you'll find details of our FamilyLine service, which provides emotional support and practical guidance with the pressures we're all experiencing right now. Thank you for listening to the Voices podcast. To find out more about Family Action and the work we do, visit www.family-action.org.uk.